think one of the reasons we're so disconnected and we're in a pandemic of chronic disease is because we don't ever stop. It is relentless. People get up, they're instantly on their phones, they're rushing, get in the car, go to work all day, rush home, sit in front of the TV, go to bed. Probably less than maybe half hour of introspection, if that. And so you could just pick 3 practices, tweak, a few food choices, adopt one lifestyle practice and maybe explore a herb. If you just did that for, probably within a week of research, you'd have those dialed in. Autonomy and agency, I think, are some of the most important constructs in health. Yeah. We have to create empowerment. It's not something that's done, health isn't something that's done to us or healing. It's what we do. We put ourselves at the middle of the circle and we take in stuff from all over the place. But that requires empowerment. And the only way to create empowerment is to understand what we need. What you're seeing is that, before you've left the door, within the first probably hour of your day, you put your body into a fight or flight response. You've told it from an evolutionary perspective that there's a saber-toothed tiger outside and you're gonna have to fight it in a minute or run. You're in a stress state.
You're in serious danger.
So before you've even left the door, that Prakruti Vikruti paradigm we spoke about, that homeostasis, not just a few cells, every cell in your body responds to that stimuli. So before you even open the front door, it cells individually, your organs, your whole body is working from a place of weakness. It's more vulnerable to anything.
Somewhat. I can't believe you're here. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a real privilege to be here.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I was lucky enough to see you speak at the Wellness Way Festival back in the summer. And I think I said to you, I have sort of touched on the world of Ayurveda. You say Ayurveda, don't you?
Ayurveda,
Let's get this clear. Ayurveda. Touched on that world. I'd sort of heard someone say, oh, my friend, she lives completely Ayurvedically and she doesn't burn in the sun anymore. She can go in the sun and she used to burn and now she doesn't burn. And I thought, oh, this is something I need to know more about, completely random. And then didn't find out any more about it. Then you spoke for an hour or so and I went, oh my God, this man makes so much sense. And I think I'd already been following you on Instagram and hearing all your brilliant tips and stuff about the magical power of herbs and all of that. And then to watch you speak. And then completely coincidentally, we were at the olive oil stall, which we'll talk about later. Yeah. And you just came over and I was like, oh my God, he's the friendliest man. And I went, would you come on my podcast? And here we are. So thank you. So I will stop rattling on and let's jump in because so many of my listeners have said they're excited that you're coming on, but they don't really get what Ayurveda is. Yeah. And I think we said it's perceived as being quite a complicated system and no one really quite knows what it all is. It's an ancient thing, but So hit us, tell us everything.
Yeah, I think before we went live, I think it's one of the biggest disservices to Ayurveda because the way it's articulated and taught and practiced and lived in India and the Himalayas and Sri Lanka, actually the hallmark of it is its simplicity. And somehow we've done what I think humans are really good at doing in the West. We've taken something that's quite intuitively simple and we've just completely overcomplicated it. And lots of the Western textbooks, they're very good, but I think maybe have fallen prey to that. Yeah. But actually, living Ayurvedically is super simple. We've got 3 kids each, haven't we? It's full on with kids. And even all the way through the kids being young, we didn't when we were sleeping badly and time poor, and it didn't impact upon our ability to live or adopt Ayurveda. So I think if it can work in that level, it will work anytime. And I think when people always ask me, what is Ayurveda? I think the best analogy I've ever heard or ever used is to kind of step away from it as a system of medicine and using the analogy of, I use it all the time, of car servicing. So if you drive a Ford, you service that car every year, don't you? So that it's on tip-top condition. It prevents any problems going wrong, keeps it running efficiently. So if you're due to service that car and you take that Ford and you take it to a Mercedes garage who doesn't know the car, hasn't got the manual for it, hasn't got the knowledge of the car, it could be the best garage in the world. It can't service that car because it doesn't know about it. Yeah. And that's what Ayurveda gives us as individuals. There's 8 billion people on the planet. There's not one the same as you or I. So what's good for me is not going to be good for you potentially, and vice versa. So what Ayurveda gives us is a manual for not what's generically healthy or what a book says is healthy, but for me as a unique person, what kind of lifestyle, foods, practices, herbs are going to be really good for me based upon how it makes me feel, not just because a scientific journal said that this is something good.
Yeah.
And you can look at some super simple examples of that. You can look at research around some of the healthiest foods on the planet, like ginger, for example. Ginger is always in the top 5, top 10 health superfoods on the planet. But ginger doesn't have the quality of being good for you or bad for you. It only has the potential for that. It depends upon the person consuming it. If you've got poor circulation or you've got a cold, ginger is one of the most powerful herbs you can take. If you've got a peptic ulcer, it's going to be actively bad. So is ginger good or bad? It doesn't have the quality of healing or harming. It only has those qualities when it's applied to the person consuming it. And you can apply that to every exercise, food, practice, anything. And you could go through every health book in Waterstones. Anything that's listed as good for you probably could be good for you. But in some contexts, it might actually be bad for you. So the idea of something being healthy only makes sense when it's viewed through the lens of individualization. And what Ayurveda gives you is a framework for how you understand individualization through the doshas, which are, loosely similar to the Western field of genetics. What makes you, you, and me. So when I think about Ayurveda, and when I try to teach Ayurveda, essentially what I think it's about is understanding yourself as a completely unique person, what things to avoid that make you a lesser version of yourself, and what things to really focus on that makes you the best version of yourself in all contexts, not just health, but your happiness, your energy, your levels of satisfaction, your levels of meaning and purpose, just the best versions of you. So I think that example of the cars, I think, is, if you're completely new to Ayurveda, is one of the simplest ways to actually understand that I need the service manual for me, not for you. And that's what I've never come across any other system of health. Maybe traditional Chinese medicine is very, very close to it, but as a framework for a manual for thriving, Ayurveda and the doshas provide that.
It's so good. And what I've learned from you, and I know so many people have found you on Instagram, is I just thought it was food. It's just food. There's nothing apart. And to me, who's had I'm going to call it a form of eating disorder, which is probably all related to not living in my type, in my dosha. I just thought, it's another diet. And it'll be something that I'll try and then I'll fail. And then that'll be that crossed off the list. And it's not that at all, is it? It's so holistic. So much more. It is so about the whole.
Everything. There's not, there's not one, from the moment you wake up in the morning to the full 24-hour cycle until you wake up the next morning, there's not one facet of that cycle that isn't impacted upon by the Ayurvedic framework. From everything from the functionality of your genes and your cells, all the way through to the way a full moon can affect you, or whether it's raining, or whether it's height of summer or height of winter. All of those things will have, a great example, why, imagine it was middle of August, it's 35 degrees, and I gave you, 2 options for dinner. One was a light garden salad, really refreshing kind of Greek salad. One was a massive steaming casserole. If it's 35 degrees, most people are going to pick the refreshing light garden salad, aren't they? You fast forward to January and it's freezing cold, dark and snowing, and you give them the same options. Most people are going to gravitate towards the hearty casserole or stew or soup. That's not a conscious decision, is it? We don't think it's an intuitive decision, and that can be applied to everything. The exercise we do, how much we sleep, the foods we eat. So much of it is intuitive, but we have to intuition, or an intuitive approach to health, is only achievable if you have time to listen. And I think one of the reasons we're so disconnected and we're in a pandemic of chronic disease is because we don't ever stop. It is relentless. People get up, they're instantly on their phones, they're rushing, get in the car, go to work all day, rush home, sit in front of the TV, go to bed. Probably less than maybe half hour of introspection, if that. And it's always strikes me as bizarre that during the COVID years, all we heard was pandemic. We heard for 2.5 years pandemic. And we've been in a pandemic, 5 years before COVID, we were in a pandemic, and we're still in a pandemic of chronic disease. But it doesn't get the lip service, it doesn't get the press. But you can't fix you can't fix a chronic disease pandemic with something simple, a drug or even surgery, because you have to take into account the person, their lifestyle. Has their mum just died? Do they hate their job? Are they underweight? You can't fix these things without taking that into account. And how can you take it into account if you can't understand it and individualize it? So, it's diet. Food is a massive part of Ayurveda, but it's still only one part. There's no point having a brilliant diet if you're stressed, sleeping badly, unhappy, don't exercise. So it's like a piece of the puzzle. If you take the piece out, the whole image is watered down. So diet is fundamental, but it's not any more important than other aspects.
No, but I love that. So talk us through, what's the best way to break it down? Because obviously, as you said, there's the dosha types, and that's kind of your personal sort of blueprint. But I'm so interested in the whole, like you just said, we don't get quiet anymore. And I know meditation is a big part of it. And I talk all the time on my podcast about, please go outside and just walk on the grass. I don't care where you do it, but please do it. And just don't take your phone. But let's look at how we figure out who we are and what's right for us.
I mean, the starting point is always going to be the doshas, because that's going to give you that sense of this is, as a general rule of thumb, what's going to be better for me. And it's not a case of being good and bad. It's better for you or less good for you. Nothing's off limits. There's very simple ways of working out your unique doshic type. If you've got if you're managing a pathology or an illness where it needs a bit more focus, it's good to go and see a clinician. And actually get a very individualized diagnosis, because that's going to allow you to obviously focus in a much more specific way. But at the same time, in most instances, there's some really, really well validated, reliable questionnaires online that are going to give you, they've been tested, something called inter-rater reliability, which is the validity and accuracy of a questionnaire when you test it across hundreds and hundreds of people.
Oh, really? Okay.
And these questionnaires have really high levels of that reliability. So actually, if you sit down and do it properly and you really introspectively protect 10, 15, 20 minutes and actually sit down and do it, and then maybe do it again a week later, you're going to get more than enough information to understand yourself and therefore what you do with that. So for people who are looking to understand how Ayurveda can help them. And I think one of the things to emphasize there is that it doesn't require a radical overhaul. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I'd like to begin to learn more about Ayurveda and adopt it, it's not a case of you're either in or you're out.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm so all or nothing. But I can't just do a little bit.
So if you're following a homeopathic approach, or you're following a naturopathic, or you're under a Western nutritionist, it's not mutually exclusive. You can say, okay, I'm going to carry on with all of that because it's really helping me. But I can still add in this and this and that. So it's not a case of you're either in the camp or you're out. Anyone can, even just one little thing. So
that's good.
It is good because it doesn't exclude anyone. Start small. So the first entry point really is to understand your doshas, because that's going to give you where you go next. And then once you've got that, it's going to allow you to see how you can just, with a very little bit of information, a very small amount of reading or learning, you're going to be able to very quickly just tweak, some of the foods you're eating, maybe adding in more of the foods that are good for you, less of the foods that are bad for you. Looking at things like your sleep practices. Do I need to sleep a little bit more, a little bit less? Are there any herbs that are really obviously, good for me, that based on how I'm feeling, what my needs are, what kind of herbs are evidentially effective at balancing that, they're safe to use long term. So you could just pick 3 practices, tweak, a few food choices, adopt one lifestyle practice and maybe explore a herb. If you just did that for, probably within a week of research, you'd have those dialed in. Do that for 4 months and see how it makes you feel. And if you're feeling really good on it, say, well, okay, how do I add a little bit more in? And then suddenly a year might go past and you look back to where you were 12 months before. And actually your lifestyle now is not just better, but it's better for you. It's customized to what your cells and genes and organs need. And that's such a profoundly powerful place to exist. Because when you go to bed at night and you look at yourself in the mirror, what you can essentially say is that I've given my body what it needs to thrive. And I've reduced its exposure to things that make it, less vital. And it's empowerment and autonomy and agency, I think, are some of the most important constructs in health.
Yeah.
We have to create empowerment. It's not something that's done, health isn't something that's done to us, or healing. It's what we do. We put ourselves at the middle of the circle, and we take in stuff from all over the place. But that requires empowerment. And the only way to create empowerment is to understand what we need. Yeah. And the doshas give us that.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. And I love that you say that, because it is, we've been brought up in this Western world to go, oh, I'm not well, I'll go to the doctor. They'll give me a tablet. They'll give me a blood test, and and it will just get fixed. But we're never getting to the root cause. It's just putting a plaster on. So, so just going back to finding out your dosha type. So they're really simple. Like it's nothing that you won't be able to answer, but it's basically asking you a series of questions about yourself and how you might respond to things, and how,
Yeah, so just common variables like how your response to, environmental factors like heat and cold, emotional factors like stress and irritability, metabolic factors, food, weight. So it's pretty, it can be quite exposing, I think, in many ways, because it's often, in my experience of giving people these kind of assessments and then listening to their feedback, people say it's the first time probably ever in my life I've actually held up almost a metaphorical mirror and looked at myself. Who ever thinks about, consciously thinks about, how do I respond when it's cold? Or how does my body feel when it's cold? Or what happens if I eat too much of this food? Or how do I respond when I'm tired? We don't ever do that. No. Or very rarely do we do that. And what it gives you is it's quite a long, hard look at yourself and actually, do I understand myself? Do I understand why I respond like that in this situation? So it's they're usually 60 questions, so 20 per dosha, covering the psycho, physiological, metabolic, behavioral. And it's interesting. And it's also interesting if you do it yourself. It can be really interesting to then get the person that knows you best to complete it for you, and cause that's quite interesting, because how we see ourselves through the lens of bias, obviously, whereas other people, they've got their own biases, but it is quite interesting to see how they pair up when you live with someone for 10, 20, 30 years. So once you get a question in like that, and we can maybe link one to the show notes or whatever. Yeah,
that would be great. I was going to say, there's one that you feel
one that we use
is a goodie. Let's pop that in the show notes.
And then that would be the very first thing. Get a quantifiable sense of, I am predominantly Vata or whatever it is. And once you've got that, you've then got the platform to say, okay, where do I go next?
Okay.
So that really is a starting point.
Perfect. So I don't think we've actually even said what the 3 types are. So I'm going to let you do that.
The 3 doshas.
Tell us the types, and sort of, you're really good at saying they're this.
So 3 doshas: Vata, Pitta, Kapha.
Yeah.
And there we can just think of them as, I think, like I said, it's often easiest initially to think of them as a broader and more holistic sense of genes. So in the same way that why someone got blonde hair or blue eyes, or whether they're dark skinned or light skinned, that's the genes that control that. The doshas likewise. So it's our mind, body, constitution, what makes us us. So each of the 3 doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, are responsible for different things in the body and can be observed in different ways. So Vatas are usually slighter. They're very creative, very flamboyant, energetic. Like one of the most consistently reliable diagnostics of Vata I've ever seen, and it often beats clinical diagnostics, is if a Vata on their bedside table has got a stack of partially read books, because a Vata will find a new book and it's the best thing since sliced bread. They're fully involved in it. They're halfway through and they see another book and that's the best thing since sliced bread. And then 6 weeks later they've got like 5 or 6 books on the side of their bed, and they've started all of them but finished none of them. It's that excitability, that everything's awesome until something else is more awesome. Really creative, life and soul of the party, really energetic. Often feel the cold, often slighter, but when they move out of balance, they're prone to things like anxiety, restlessness, hyperactivity, poor sleep, things like constipation, dry skin, IBS. So they're the weak in terms of physiological form. They're the weakest, so they're more vulnerable to things happening. Because they're so they're just balls of energy. Pittas are pitta is fire, so it's your type A, driven, focused, competitive, ambitious, goal orientated, kind of profile. Not necessarily in a bad way, because obviously the doshas have the same qualities, but when they're balanced, they're good. When they're out of balance, they're bad. So you could look at someone like Mother Teresa, and the public perception is this very old, frail, Albanian woman who, cared for the sick. All those things are true, but you read her autobiography, absolute fierce force of nature. So she was pittogenic to the core. So driven, so aggressive. As soon as someone crossed her or crossed her mission, they would be met with a sword, metaphorically. Yeah. So that's pitta isn't all bad. It's not in terms of bad ambition. It can be brilliant ambition, but it's still that very driven focus. They are very single-minded. Like in that book analogy, a pitta would get a book, they would start it, they would finish it, they would put it back on the bookshelf, get another book. So because
that's confusing me, because I'm Kapha, which I know you're about to come on to. Yeah. But I'm the book analogy. I'm the start, like, oh, this is exciting.
Yeah, but that's why I said before we went live, I said emotionally you're probably very vartogenic.
Really?
Because you're very, your energy, your psychological self, I think, is very, very vartogenic. Oh. So you could have,
that's why I need to know all about it.
Pitta, so when pitta moves out of balance, that psychological profile can manifest as things like irritability, anger, short-temperedness, or physically any hot inflammatory problems like reflux, gastritis, inflammatory bowel disease, inflammatory skin conditions. And then Kapha is the third dosha. Kapha is responsible for anything in the body that is nourished, supported, so that has those qualities across the board. So emotionally and psychologically, Kaphas are loving, nurturing, nourishing, caring. They are empaths. They are ports in a storm. When everything's going mad around you, they are stable. They solve problems. I think we said before, everyone, if you've got a Kapha in your life, you're truly blessed because, and I'm convinced, and people laugh at me about this, but I'm convinced that in the same way the educational system tried to break left-handers. Yes. So I'm a left-hander, and I was right at the cusp of that, where you tried to, write with your right hand, and it was bad, it was the devil's hand, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And if I look at education and commerce, it's about going through school, getting the best grades. Society tells you then either go to university or get the best job you can. The best job you can usually being informed by the salary you get, not how much you enjoy it. So those systems, they value the creativity and energy of Vata. Right. They crave and inspire the drive and focus of Pitta, but they don't really value the loving, nurturing, kind, empathetic qualities of Kapha. You went to a job interview with Barclays Bank. They're going to be more interested in your drive, focus, creativity, problem solving than they are how kind you are.
Yeah, don't get an empath.
So I feel like Western culture is almost trying to break those Kapha traits out of younger people because it's not valued in the same way the traits of Vata and Pitta are. And I think you see that a lot in the workplace. You see the absence of nourishment and love and kindness and empathy. And it's, I haven't got any evidence to prove this. It's just my kind of a nuanced view of the world. But when Kaphas go out of balance, they're prone to inertia, heaviness. So that could be things like lack of motivation, sluggishness, like just not really doing anything, even jealousy sometimes. Physiologically, it can be things like weight gain, high cholesterol, high blood sugar, metabolic. So it's not that one. And everyone. The big thing to emphasize is everyone's got all three doshas. It's like otherwise it's like saying you haven't got any kidneys or you haven't got a big toe because everyone's got all three. And everyone will present with signs and qualities of all three because you've got all three in you. But it's what's dominant. So you could manifest physically, like you said, as being quite kapha. You could manifest more vatagenic traits emotionally.
Yeah.
You'll also have pittagenic traits because you've got pitta in you. So it's everyone will have all three, and you have overt signs of all three, but it's what one is most dominant in you will inform how you engineer a life that brings perfect health.
Yeah.
So it's which one, what's really pulling the strings is what informs what you do with that.
Okay. And then, because I can never remember the words for this, but basically what you're doing, if you were going to see someone who was a practitioner of Ayurveda and they were going to look at where you were and you would come, say I was coming along going, oh, but you know, this is happening and I've got struggling with my weight or and I can't. What are you looking to do to get someone into balance? Like if I am too, I don't know how to explain it. There's a word.
Vatagenic or.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's two. So moving into almost like clinical Ayurveda now. So there's two types of doshic balance.
Yes.
Something called Prakruti.
This is what I was trying to say. Thank you for being my words.
So Prakruti is perfection. So the moment when ovum and sperm met and any given person was conceived, in Western science, their genome, their genetic map was laid down. That can never change. It's like saying I'm going to change my eyes to be brown. You can't. It's fixed. That's your genetic, physiological state of perfection. Yep. So that in Ayurveda is called Prakruti. It means to be in your nature. If you're living, the aim of Ayurveda is to make your current state, so where we are right now, sitting here on the 14th, is it the 14th? Or whatever the date is, of October. 15th, so wherever we are. Right now, if your state of your body matches Prakruti, then you're in homeostasis. Your body is working from a place of profound balance. In Ayurveda, it's called swastha. It's like perfect health, which aligns perfectly with the Western science of homeostasis. Every cell, organ working from a place of where it should do. But you know, so for me, for example, I had a great morning, did all the stuff I need to do, but my train was late, so I was stressed and worried. So that would cause a little bit of Vikruti. So Vikruti is a move away from perfection. So say I'd got up, my example, the fact that I had a great breakfast and my morning routine was bang on and I got up with the circadian clock, all those things, that's maintain homeostasis. But the fact that my train was late and I was stressed, that's just put a little bit of Vikruti. Nothing, it's insignificant, but it's a little bit of Vikruti.
We didn't tell you off.
No, I didn't tell you off, not much.
And we were really quite nice to him.
So the more, if you're working, 16 hours a day, eating processed foods at a desk all day, not, stressed, exhausted, sleeping badly, you do that for a week, you're fine. Do it for a month, you're probably going to get away with it. Do it for 6 months or a year, something's going to go wrong because Vikruti is built. Yeah. So the aim of Ayurveda is one, to prevent Vikruti building, so to inform how you mitigate that through how you live. But two, if it does build, which it always will, no one is free of Vikruti, no one. When it does build, how do you observe how that makes me feel? So if I was, like my example this morning, if that was a Vata person, that could manifest as anxiety. If it was Pitta, it could manifest as, irritability or anger. If it was Kapha, it could manifest as real worry about, upsetting the apple cart in here.
It would make me worry about someone else.
Yeah. But, so therefore, how you would manage that is different to what a Pitta or a Vata would. And this comes back to that car analogy. It's no good knowing just opening a book in Waterstones and saying, here's how you manage anxiety. Because you didn't have anxiety generically, it was worry. No. That's different to managing anger. So Ayurveda gives us a sense of, well, this is what Vikruti, this is what's causing Vikruti in you, overwork, stress at home, whatever. But here's how it manifests in you and therefore how you reverse it.
Okay.
So I think the example we used before was they always talk about Prakruti as being this massive, solid mahogany table that never moves, never changes. You left it in a room, you protected it, would stay there for eternity. That's Prakruti, that's perfection. Vikruti is the dust that settles on the surface. If you don't dust the table for a decade, it's going to have a massive layer of dust on it that's quite hard to remove. Every day, if you just remove the dust that's formed, then you keep yourself in balance. So Prakruti is the perfect strong table. Vikruti is the dust that forms. Ayurveda's aim is to remove the dust to prevent illness. And it's simple, and that's the beauty of it. It's simple. It's
So
simple things.
So
it can be complicated. You know, if you're managing a serious illness, you can get super complicated.
Yeah.
But it's still complicated within a framework of simplicity, if that makes sense. So it's not. That's what I love about it. I love the idea that if the rest of my day is hopefully super chilled out, but if I knew the rest of the day was going to be really, really stressful, I know what to put in place this evening to remove the dust of that stress so that I rebalance before I go to bed, rather than going to bed with, a cortisol through the roof and my inflammatory markers through the roof and my immune cells suppressed. I recognize that I've got the tools to fix it. So when I wake up tomorrow, I'm back to baseline. And I think that if you can apply it to anything, to acid reflux or eczema, or there's not one thing you can't apply that to. So it's just that knowledge, I think.
So good.
Yeah.
It's so good. So let's go through. You're the perfect example because you're living and breathing it, rather than me who's going, I had my water and lemon and I did go outside for half an hour this morning. And
but it's not just though.
No, so I know.
It's not just like just getting it outside in natural light this morning. That will be impacted on every single one of the 60 trillion cells in your body for the next 24 hours.
Yeah,
so it's not
credit
just
to me.
Yes, that's a massive thing.
It's huge.
It's a big thing. So I think it's just as important to acknowledge actually that small but singular thing actually has a profound impact on the way your body. Even to the point where if you're in the petrol station, someone coughs on you, that potentially could reduce the risk of an infection setting in because your immune cells are functioning more efficiently. So it's like a knock-on effect. But anyway, sorry.
We'll come on to that because if someone coughs on me, I always say to the kids, you'll be fine. Yeah. Breathe out. And they all go, I was already breathing out. I was already, and you just know you won't get ill. Yeah. So you won't get ill. But we'll come on to that and your belief system. And I hear you, and I love that you're acknowledging that I am doing things already, and that's brilliant because I'm doing something, which is always better than nothing. Always take action. But for you, because I'm having you here as a god, what does and I know you're a super busy person, your business is super busy, and all the things that you're doing in the world to help people. What does it look like? What should people be looking to do? Because I'm saying, it's not just food. So you talk a lot about circadian.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to caveat that before I start and say that I'm absolutely not putting myself on a pedestal of kind of as someone who's living this perfectly, because I've failed and fall down as much as the next person. So I'd hate
talking to you.
I'd hate for anyone to feel like I'm like a walking Ayurvedic deity who's like perfect all the time, because I'm far from
that's
it.
Cool.
But in terms of me, in terms of Ayurveda, actually, authentically, but for me personally, even more so, the morning routine is sacrosanct. It would be the very last thing I gave up. If I had to give up Ayurveda, and I could keep one thing, that would be the last thing I would keep. Because, I think it's easiest to look at the opposite. Imagine, so many people, they wake up, they try and get the alarm clock as late as they possibly can to squeeze every 10 minutes of sleep, whatever. They wake up and they're instantly in the day. They are instantly rushing. It's jump in the shower, get dressed quickly, scoff down food, get the kids or whatever it is. And then before they've even begun, they've lost. Because if you look at that kind of behavior from a cellular perspective, what you're seeing is that, before you've left the door, within the first probably hour of your day, you put your body into a fight or flight response. You've told it from an evolutionary perspective that there's a saber-toothed tiger outside and you're going to have to fight it in a minute or run. You're in a stress state.
You're in serious danger.
So before you've even left the door, that Prakruti, Vikruti paradigm we spoke about, that homeostasis, not just a few cells, every cell in your body responds to that stimuli. So before you even open the front door, its cells individually, your organs, your whole body is working from a place of weakness. It's more vulnerable to anything. Whereas the opposite of that is called the Ayurvedic optimal morning routine, which is where you completely go the other way. You say, okay, before...
It's making me go...
Yeah, I know it is. And I can't imagine how you couldn't do it. So before the aim being that before you leave the house in the morning, you're not just feeling good, but you are genetically and cellularly perfect in terms of your ability to deal with the day, because you've done things that from a clinical perspective we know impacts upon the working of every part of the body. So you're getting up at the right time is a big one. Because we know the body, the single biggest driver of the body is the circadian rhythm, the 24-hour cycle. Everything takes its cue from that. It's one of the few things in the body that every cell is impacted upon. So so generally speaking, for most people, about 6-ish is the optimal time to wake up. In summer, you can obviously make it earlier because the sun rises earlier. In winter, you could, probably January when it's darkest, you could probably push it back to say 5:30, 6:00, 7:00. But as a rule of thumb, it's 6 straddles.
Is it a certain amount of time from sunrise, ideally?
Yeah, I did. So your circadian clock, and to put this into perspective, this won the Nobel Prize. So this is you can't get any further than this, because this is the foundation of health. Because if you eat well, that's dependent upon your circadian rhythm to benefit. If you exercise well, that's dependent upon your circadian rhythm. So anything you do that's health promoting is actually unlocked by the circadian clock.
Okay.
So all other practices come after this circadian cycle, but the circadian cycle is reset every day, and it's set within the first 90 minutes after sunrise are what trips it for the coming day. So after sunrise, the sun gives off a completely unique frequency of UVA, UVB, and infrared. And when that hits the eye, it hasn't got to be light sunlight. It can just be, if it's cloudy, you still get it. It's not direct sunlight. Yeah. When that light then hits the eye then sends that to a part of the brain called the SCN, which is the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And that tells the brain that the day is beginning. For millions of years, we evolved. Hunter-gatherers today, every other daytime mammal wakes with the sun. And you'd never get a daytime active mammal sleeping in till 11 in the morning because it hasn't got the ability to, because it sleeps outside. So when the sun comes up, it wakes up.
That's it. Yeah.
So we still have that genetic trigger, but we circumvent it through blinds and curtains. And so if you miss that if your eyes aren't open within that first 90 minutes, you are circadian disrupted till the next day. So that impacts upon your heart, your blood pressure, your heart rate, your immunity, your inflammation, everything. Particularly your digestion, your metabolic profile. The impacts upon things like blood sugar is profound. Wow. So waking up at the right time and exposing your eyes to natural light.
And can that look like, so I have a loft conversion, so open the Velux so I can look straight out with no window.
That's all you need.
But if people are saying, well, but I have to get straight off and I'm in the car, or, I can only look through a window. Yeah. Does that count? Because I think you have to be in it, don't you?
It's better to be outside. I think when people say, and it's a very valid, barrier, when people say I've got to be, up and out straight away, my kind of first response is, what time is that? Because if you can maybe get up half an hour earlier, maybe you could protect a bit of time just to center yourself before the chaos begins. And that's for me, with the 3 kids and all of the once the kids are up, my mornings are chaos. Yes. But I've had an hour of bliss.
You're in full fight or flight.
I don't care, because I've had an hour before that. Where
it changes everything.
It does, but for me that does require, I get up at 5 virtually every morning, because one, I love it. It makes me feel good, but 2, it gives me an hour to embed the core practices that Ayurveda says to embed in the morning, all of which are rigorously proven in Western science. So and circadian alignment is sacrosanct, because everything else, if I wasn't in circadian alignment, I have a super healthy lunch, my digestive system isn't able to extract the nutrients as well, which means it can't deliver it to the cells as well, which means you don't get the benefit as much. So
it does.
Yeah, but then other things, once it's not just a case of getting up earlier, it's what you do with that time. So if you're going to get up 40 minutes earlier, you might as well do something constructive with that rather than just doom scrolling on Instagram or whatever it is. So things like, sun salutations for me, yoga, just to not exercise, but just warming the body up, just getting things going. Some kind of contemplative practice, meditation, pranayama, breathing, mindfulness. It could be spiritual, it could be other, it can be completely, non-spiritual. Self-massage is a really big one in Ayurveda. The impacts upon physiology are mind-blowing around things like inflammation, immunity, nice hot shower, seasonally specific breakfast. And then before the day then begins, practically speaking, you've wiped away the dust of that Vikruti, you've embedded homeostasis, every cell is working from balance. So therefore, if you have a terrible day, if you start the day in balance and you have a terrible day, you get that much. But if you start the day there and have a terrible day, you're that much. So it just means that you're almost future-proofing yourself. Yes. It's not to say that, I mean, you can still have a terrible day, but the terrible day isn't going to have the same level of impact physically, biochemically, psychologically that it would if you started the day from a potentially less balanced place. And then at the same time, when it gets to the end of the day, it's about, well, what hasn't worked well today and how do I mitigate that? Like yesterday, I was in London all day and I was on the train. I was in meetings all day on the train home and I got home at like 7. I think I'd done probably less than 1,000 steps.
Yeah.
So straight away, for me, that's really obvious dust on the Vikruti. So that I had to get the head torch, to get the dogs and go for an hour walk because I knew that would just offset all the stress and I felt stiff and I felt horrible. I couldn't mitigate that in the day, but you can mitigate it in the evening. So most things, if you've eaten really badly all day, you can still eat well at night. You can still go to shops on the way home and buy some healthy food. So this is always ways of undoing what's been done. So if you start well, the best case is you start brilliantly, have a brilliant day, end brilliantly, and you've absolutely nailed it. But worst case is you start brilliantly, have an awful day, but then you reset before you go to bed, and then you've undone what's been done. So it's just a very, very empowering way of being, I think.
And then so going on from that wonderful morning routine, and I'm just going to say quickly, I've been doing the self-massage because I heard you taught that on the course.
Yeah.
Game changer. Because I just thought, like, for example, you know the book, The 5 a.m. Club, and he says, you must have a full body massage twice a week. And it's like, who the hell is paying for a full body massage twice a week?
How? Where?
I know. And then I was like, okay. And so I didn't think self-massage would have the same benefits, but actually, and really it's amazing. Short time.
3-4 minutes.
It's really good. And I keep going, oh, and I think my skin looks better, and I feel better, and also the oil pulling, the coconut oil pulling,
massive,
and tongue scraping,
I can't say I personally I'm not as good
I don't know about tongue scraping.
I'm not as good with that, but the oil pulling I do every morning.
I really like it, and it keeps powerful. Me nose breathing and all that stuff, and just carrying that on, and I love it because the kids go, oh, she's got coconut oil in her mouth. I'm like, it's brilliant. They can't talk to me.
Yeah, no, I can't answer. It's great.
I go,
I know. It's but what's funny about oil pulling is there's now quite compelling evidence to show how it has a very important anti-Alzheimer's impact.
Yes.
Yeah,
is it?
Yeah, because there's a bacteria in the mouth called S. mutans, which is a really quite toxic bacteria. And when everyone has micro tears in their gums, and that S. mutans can, particularly if you've got bleeding gums, can enter the blood system and it travels through the body. And it's by no means saying it causes Alzheimer's, but when they've done autopsies on people that develop early onset Alzheimer's that's progressed quicker, they have a really dense concentration of S. mutans in the brain tissue affected by Alzheimer's. And they've now shown that S. mutans accelerates the structural damage that doesn't cause but speeds up Alzheimer's. But coconut oil and sesame oil have both been clinically proven to destroy S. mutans in the mouth. So when you're oil pulling every day, you're massively reducing the volume of that bacteria that gets into the blood and therefore into the brain. So it's not you obviously can't say it prevents Alzheimer's, but it's just chipping away at one potential risk. So it's really interesting.
Oh, and just to say what that is quickly, sorry, because I just went, I do oil pulling too. I literally, I just buy a massive thing. Other places are available, but I go to Costco and buy a massive thing of organic coconut oil, and it just sits in the bathroom, and I just scoop a bit, and it's actually amazing.
Yeah, when it melts, it's lush.
Because my kids, I really want my kids to do it, and they're like, it's gross. I said, no, it sort of melts, and then you just sort of swish it. How long should you do it for? Sorry, just for me.
You can do it. I mean, some of the really authentic practices talk about 15 minutes, but it's exhausting, isn't it? Your mouth aches.
I do it for about 15, 20 minutes. I have my whole shower. Yeah. I do everything.
Yeah, I mean, 15 minutes.
And then I go, okay, now time. And then brush the teeth.
If you can, then awesome.
Okay, because my friend was like, "Oh, I do it for 5 minutes," and I went, "Oh, well, I do it for longer."
Yeah, no. If you can get to 15 minutes or 20 minutes, then
okay. I think because I'm so obsessed with nose breathing, and I think people who are mouth breathers find it quite hard.
Yeah.
But I'm all about you've got to tape that mouth and breathe.
Yeah, I know.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that is. So if you can do 15 minutes, then awesome.
Amazing. Oh, so actually, I'm looking all right.
You're doing loads.
Bits.
This is what I'm saying, though. Yeah. Suddenly, if you do that for a year, those few small bits, the exponential gains are massive.
Yeah.
And it's not just massive subjectively in terms of how you feel, but if you took blood now and you took blood in a year later, you've been able to quantify that into all kinds of markers. So it's real stuff.
Yeah.
And those markers are protective of the things that kill us. You look at cancers and Alzheimer's and heart diseases and diabetes and strokes. Most of these diseases are preventable or very significantly delayable. Yeah. And what does that is us. It's the things we do or don't do, and the long term impacts are massive. So it's not a small thing.
No, I love that. So just going through our day. So with Ayurveda, it's about 3 meals a day, not fasting.
Yeah, you can fast. Yeah,
fasting
so
is
again,
Dosha
okay,
but it depends. Because I don't think it's good for me.
No,
I don't feel good on fasting.
So again, and that's the ultimate sign, isn't it? Because no one can tell you that
it's not one size fits all.
Yeah, it's not. And things like fasting and ice baths are the best examples. All the stuff about ice baths and Wim Hof and everything, and for a pitta type person, probably really good. But every time I've done, I constantly, because I would live on the coast on the beach, and a load of our social group, they sea swim all year.
Right.
And every time I tried to either use an ice bath in the garden or go sea swimming in winter, I get a cold. I get like a respiratory infection. And I was like, well, I don't care what the research tells me about immunity. It does not work for me. It ain't working for me. So why would I do it? It's so madness. It's like I'm going to hit my hand with a hammer. It doesn't help me.
Yeah.
So, and this is what I'm saying. It's not about something labeled as being good. Nothing has that quality. It's depending on how it relates to you. So fasting's another one. Like some people absolutely feel just on top of the world with fasting. Some people makes them feel tired and really foggy headed, and why do it? It's obviously not good for you. So
because you think, well, what's wrong with me? Because the whole world, the internet is telling me you must have ice baths and you must fast for this many hours a day.
Yeah, it's got to be for you.
That's so interesting. Yeah, and they say it a lot around. I have a lot of my listeners are midlife women, and it's not good in sort of perimenopause, menopause. And I mean, I was having cold showers every single day. And I look back and I go, actually, I think I was in a real stress response most of the day. I'd be quite shaky and not good.
Yeah, so
I kept doing it.
And this is what I find so frustrating about the health media. A lot of health media is really good because it does empower you.
Yes.
But you could be someone who suddenly reads a book or listens to an article or a podcast, whatever, and they say fasting and ice showers, cold showers are awesome. So that poor person could start the day, not have breakfast, have a cold shower, and can't work out why they feel so bad for the whole. Even though they're doing what's said is good. And they're in a state of fight or flight through no fault of their own. And it's like, well, you have to look at these things through the lens of your own experience, and that's just the doshas at play.
That is perfect. Yeah, it's perfect advertisement for it. But you only know how you feel. You can't go by what someone on Instagram is telling you. It's how you feel.
No, and a lot of people feel brilliant on it. So it's
100%. Oh God, I know so many people it works for, and I have an ice bath. And anyway, that's another story. So you go through your day, and then again, resetting at night is so key, isn't it?
Massively.
So what's the ideal?
The thing about sleep, I don't know if you read the book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker.
Yes, my sister bought that for me years ago. It's unbelievable.
Sleep is just, if you think about the circadian alignment as the bottom of the pyramid in terms of it impacts upon everything else, it's the foundation. Sleep is probably the next level because, again, everything takes its cue from that. Your exercise, your diet, all those things are resetting. But what's interesting about sleep is, again, the circadian implication, because melatonin, which is the sleep hormone, it works on a stop clock. And so melatonin production is triggered 14 hours after you wake up. 14 hours, So if you wake up at 10, 14, or we're saying that's a bit late. So you wake up at 8, which is not ideal, but still probably quite common in some people.
Very common, yeah.
So, 8 plus 14 hours takes you to 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And it takes 2 hours to reach optimal dose. So that's then midnight. So your body is hormonally primed for sleep at midnight, but then you've missed it because you get overtired because you're either working or you're watching telly, and it's almost hormonally maybe not impossible, but close to get a good night's sleep. But if you wake up at 6, then that takes you to, melatonin's going to start being secreted at 8 p.m. 2 hours takes you to 10. Absolutely bang on. Yeah, so most people are hormonally primed to enter perfect sleep at between about 9:30 and 10:30, depending upon when you get up. So your ability to sleep is nothing to, what you do in the evening is going to help it.
Yeah.
But actually the software of your sleep is already determined from the moment you wake up, and you can't biohack that. It's done. So that's another reason why getting up earlier. So if you're getting up at 5, then it's suddenly you're getting to 9ish is your 9, half 9, which is when I go to bed. You're going to get your 8 hours sleep, 8 hours sleep, really good sleep. Wake up in the morning, feel energized, and then you kind of go again. And but 6 is a really good. That's one of the reasons why 6 in the morning is a really good factory setting for most people, because it allows you to harness the morning benefits, but it still allows the melatonin curve to be peaking at around 10, which for most people is a reasonable time to go to sleep. And then even other things in the evening, like stress. In a working week, when we had our full-time clinic, a number of people who had almost exclusively stress-related ailments, like tension, headaches, and teeth grinding. And if you have cortisol stimulation all day, you can turn that off an hour or so before bed to reset. So every day you're wiping away that dust. And things like a bath or a herbal bath, just any bath, but you can make herbal baths with that are proven to reduce stress.
Go on, tell us some good herbs to pop in that bath.
I mean,
I just put magnesium.
Magnesium is brilliant. But you can make things like passion flower is awesome, chamomile is awesome, skullcap's awesome, rosemary is brilliant. Essentially just make a really big herbal tea.
Yeah.
So you might put like 2 or 3 tablespoons of the herbs into a pan, pour over boiling water, let it steep for an hour or half hour, and then just strain it through a sieve so you've got the really strong tea, and pour that into the bath, and you absorb it. So it's called transdermal therapy. So you actually absorb the herbal part, the constituents, the chemicals through the skin. It enters the blood. So it has that really powerful kind of calming. But a normal bath with magnet or any bath will be good. A meditation, yoga nidra, calming sleep yoga, reading, kind of a spiritual text like necessarily like the Bible, but something that, is good, something that is
a positive read,
food for the brain, not a horror.
I was going to say, not reading King. The latest thriller just before, which so many people do.
Yeah. And this is why my bugbear is the 10 o'clock news.
Oh,
I mean, if you
I've been that years ago.
Literally, if you had to design something to be culturally just
worst.
Decimating, right before you're going to bed, you're telling your brain that you're in a war zone, you're in a famine, or you're in Farage's kitchen, or
and it's only in the last few years that I've got. So my husband loves the news, loves it. He's so intelligent, and he loves the fact that he knows everything that's going on. I always say, I don't need the news because you'll always tell me, so I'll never not know anything. So that's fine. But I'll just watch the news before I come up, and I'm like, do you know what? Please don't wake me up. I'll have my eye mask on. I will be out. I will be because it's just the worst way to make your day. It was like in lockdown. I remember everyone having the news app on their phone, and it like the BBC would go, and it would be like that.
Oh my God!
And it would just be telling you how many people had died.
You don't need to know.
Really, is that a really good way to be living your life?
And the day's done. We're diurnal mammals. We've evolved for humans are 200,000 years old as a species. So for all of that history as an actual species, we've been exclusively diurnal. We don't hunt. We don't eat. We don't do anything productive. Once the sun's set and it's dark, we slept. So when it gets to bedtime, it's a sense of saying, well, the day is done. I can't positively impact upon anything that's already happened. My best practice to allow me to dominate tomorrow is to start tomorrow fresh. So actually, no matter what's happening tomorrow, the best thing I can do for it, good or bad, is to get a really good night's sleep and start the day strong. And then that allowed me to dominate what's coming, rather than trying to preempt what's going to happen tomorrow or watch the news. It's a lose every time.
Lose. And I'm sure there'll be people listening go, well, that sounds great, but it's just not possible for me. Or I work shifts, or I told you about my daughter who's living a crazy life at the moment, getting up all hours, and I don't know how to get her to reset.
Yeah, and it's not. It's not. My brother's a pilot, so he works shift work.
Yeah,
and you can't. We live in the 21st century. We've got mortgages, and we're not living back then. And you have to try and make it fit you, but at the same time, we do have to realize that as a species, we're living in an environment that we haven't evolved to thrive.
We haven't had an upgrade, have we? The software hasn't had an upgrade.
We haven't. Every single part. So we have something called the Paleolithic genome, which about they question it, 80 to 87% of our genome now is the same as what it was when we first stood up in Tanzania 200,000 years ago. But if you think about that environment, no electricity, no work, no commute, no social, no nothing, 85% of what's pulling our genetic strings needs that, and it's got this. So it's such disparity between what our body craves and what it's got. And that's why things like forest bathing and nature immersion are so massive, because it's essentially giving that Paleolithic genome what it recognizes.
Going back to where it really wants to be.
And there was can I digress on this?
Of course, I love it.
Brilliant study in COVID where, because in the lockdowns, because there was so much mental health, obviously, with isolation and whatnot, all of the big mental health charities were doing online data collection around how people were struggling and what's helping. And there was the biggest trend they identified when the algorithms was people saying, it's really weird, on my balcony, or I'm in the park, or I'm in a city flat or wherever, and if I can hear the birds, within like 10 minutes, I chilled out. And they all around the world, these research departments were picking up the same story. So they got a load of medical anthropologists involved, and they started researching it. And what they discovered was that our Paleolithic genome, so when we were living as hunter-gatherers, when there was bird song, it means two things. One, it means there's an abundance of resources, so water and food, berries, and so the birds because they were happy, they sang, and they only sing when there's the absence of predators. So when we were living as hunter-gatherers, if we were wandering through the savannah and we heard loads of bird song, we would know there was no predators and there's water. So we instantly associate that with safety and security. The parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and we feel safe, cortisol drops. So when we're on a balcony in inner London, that Paleolithic genome is still just as active. And what it's saying is, I can hear bird song, I know I'm safe. And we calm down. And it's just one of those beautiful examples of that the body, if we give the body what it inherently needs, the sky's the limit when it comes to healing and health. So I find it mind blowing. Yeah,
I love that. And of course, in London, you could hear the birds in lockdown because there was no traffic and no trains. Whereas I'm lucky enough, I hear the birds every day.
Yeah,
it brings me such comfort. It makes me so happy.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
We're very simple beings, aren't we?
So simple.
We really just need to. Says she sitting on a podcast and not doing all of that. But we've got to talk about it.
You do. We have to use the bad parts of this, culture to hopefully empower the good parts. And that's why things like social media and podcasts, they have a really bad side, but they're also really helpful, aren't they?
Amazing education.
Yeah, so it's, I think, we can't, it's not about going back to living in a cave.
No.
It's about just trying to give the body more of what it needs. It's interesting.
Good. Oh, it's so good. Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing all of that about exactly what Ayurveda is and how it doesn't have to be this big, overwhelming, terrifying thing. We haven't touched on the 6 tastes because, as I said to you, I just thought it was a thing about food. I just thought, it's just going to be a complicated thing and I'll never be able to have chocolate again and it's just going to be another one I fail at. So can you talk us through, it's a lot simpler, isn't it? It's about the taste.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's important, I always try and remove bias when I'm talking about this because I am biased. We're all, we've all biased, aren't we, on things we love. But, I studied nutritional models clinically when I was working at the hospital for over 10 years, looking at kind of what's the, not the best generically, because nothing's the best, but what is the most simplistic way of eating that's almost going to guarantee full body nutrition. And I can hand on heart say that the 6 tastes of Ayurveda during that time were and still are, to my mind, the most profound nutritional model I've ever come across, because there's German research that shows that if you're eating all foods from all of the 6 tastes every day, ideally at every meal, it virtually guarantees full body nutrition in terms of micro and macronutrients. And it is, because the thing with nutrition is that it's nutritional breadth is the linchpin of success. Because say you're having, say you're eating your 5 or 7 a day, and those 5 or 7 are out and out superfoods. If you're having the same ones every day,
might be me.
It's really common. It's a lot better than not having them, but you're only getting a fragment of the spectrum of breadth you need. Whereas the 6 tastes are sweet, and I don't call it sweet, I call it anabolic, because no part of sweet is Mars bars and Ben and Jerry's.
We're not doing sugar.
We're not doing that. And it's the sweet foods are foods that are anabolic, so strengthening. So things like nuts, healthy fats, oils, dairy, if you grains, things that if you're hungry you'd gravitate towards, healthy options. Salty and sour are simple. So salt is so there's 4 predominant tastes and 2 secondary tastes. So the 2 secondary tastes are sour and salty, because you just need a tiny amount, a drizzle of lemon here, a pinch of salt there. It's a very tiny part. The 4 dominant ones are sweet, so anabolic, pungent, bitter, and astringent. So they contain your pungent foods, your garlics, your alliums, your gingers, your chilies, your watercress, your rockets. Some of the most nutritiously dense. Olive oil to a degree has got that secondary pungency. Yes. Your bitter foods contain probably the single most disease-preventing foods on the planet in terms of your leafy greens, your brassicas, your kales, your chards, dandelions, nettles, coffee, cacao, pound for pound, probably the single most powerful classification of health foods. And then your astringent foods, your legumes, pulses, beans, kind of that. So if you look at a meal that contains a good volume of all of those 6 tastes, it virtually, as long as you're not having the same things every day, obviously, it virtually guarantees the right volume of micro and macronutrients, but across the full breadth. So the flavonoids, the isoflavones, the antioxidants, the fiber, the fat, all the complex carbohydrates, the full gamut. And I've studied nutrition for so long from a Western perspective, particularly in the cancer context, but also obviously Ayurvedically. And nothing I've ever seen will ever make me move away from that as the way I eat ever. Really? I mean, that might change, something amazing comes, but I don't see, you can't better the wheel, you can't reinvent the wheel, there's no way of improving it. And to me the wheel is the 6 tastes, because it gives you everything. And it's intuitive, it's simple, because you can look at what you normally eat and just tweak it. You haven't got to change the way you eat. One thing that bugs me is Ayurvedic cookbooks. Your Delia Smith's Ayurvedic, Jamie Oliver's Ayurvedic, because they've got tastes. If they've got food, they are Ayurvedic, because they've got whatever. If Delia Smith is cooking a roast, it's going to have sweet foods, and it's going to have So it's just about how you look at the food you like to eat, and just look at, you don't need to stop eating that, but how do you tweak it to have more? Maybe if you haven't got any astringent foods, how do you add astringency or whatever it may be? And that's why it's so brilliant, because for a diet to work, it has to be sustainable, and to be sustainable, it has to be easy, and lots of them aren't easy. So, and that's we've taught, particularly those with cancer, with thousands and thousands, including the clinical trials, to use the 6 tastes, and the feedback is universally that it's simple. So these very complex ideas of Ayurvedic nutrition, it doesn't need to be.
And that's why what you're doing is so brilliant, because it's just that lack of knowledge, and you just break it down. Like you just do little clips on your Instagram and say, try this.
Yeah.
And it's just making it,
Simples.
it's just demystifying it. 'Cause
Yeah.
you just, oh, I don't know what that is. No, that's for, oh, isn't that some ancient thing that, you know, I'll never get to grips with that. And that's certainly where I came from.
Yeah.
And now I'm loving it because I'm thinking, God, I'm doing so many of these things.
Yeah.
Sleep is definitely my one that I need to hit.
That is it.
You know, when you, again, it's probably come back to a self-belief that I'm a night owl. So everything, I seem to come to life in the evening and I do my best work late at night and I put, you know, I mean, it's not good and it doesn't make me feel good. I mean, there's the proof. It makes me feel shocking.
Is it? Yeah, well.
The next day. Feels great at the time.
Yeah.
Shocking the next day.
I mean, there is a slight caveat in that again, you can't generalize because you can't study everyone, but there's a suggestion that around 3 to 5% of people are genetically hardwired in a different way that potentially makes them more productive at night than they are in the day.
Okay.
But that doesn't circumvent the mechanisms of the circadian cycle. So even though you feel like you're performing well, even though you do perform better, that doesn't detract from the circadian clock because that still governs the same. So you've got a bit of a conflict, but generally most of those people feel better for aligning with the circadian clock and doing less of the active stuff in the evening.
Yeah, I think what it is I think I work really well with time pressure, and in a way I'm putting pressure on myself. I go, hurry up because you need to go to sleep. So I think it's probably that. So I think, whereas my husband will swear blind he's a night owl, and I blame him and say, but I stay up because you've stayed up. And he's like, no, it's like, this is my time. This is my time.
Is my time.
And, you know, and he really loves his evening. He doesn't want it. Like he'll read a book for hours, but he doesn't want to go to sleep. But then he can't get up in the morning. So there we go.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. There's so many elements to it. I feel like we'll take a little break there because we've covered so much and there's a lot. And then we're going to come onto your amazing book.
Okay.
So the Ayurvedic approach to cancer. Cool. Ayurvedic. I'm saying it differently all the time. The Ayurvedic approach to cancer because it's a life-changing book and I'm so happy that you've written it. Thank you so much for listening today. I'm sure you'll agree there was so much great content in there from Dr. Sam. And if you'd like more of that kind of thing, please subscribe to my newsletter, The Happy Monday. And as Sam has just told us that the highest rates of heart attacks happen on a Monday morning, then what better way to start your week than with all the good stuff from me in The Happy Monday to set you up for a great week ahead. Please join us for the next one when we'll explore even further into Sam's book, The Ayurvedic Approach to Cancer.